Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as we're now on the road to 500 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love sports content, sports talk, anything from sports betting to updated rankings every week, it's all right here on the Talk of the Town podcast. And here today, we are going to be reacting to some of Week 14's best games. Yes, I know. Week 14, it's pretty crazy to say, and how fast time is flying. Hell, it just seems like a week ago I was talking about the Chargers and Lions preseason game. I'm pretty sure that was the first preseason game of the year, and now we're a few weeks out from the playoffs. So kind of sad how fast time is flying here this season and just in general. But I hope you guys are having a great Monday morning and had a great weekend as well. This week is my birthday week. I turned 22 years old on Friday. And of course, on my birthday week, I also have finals week for college. So that's fantastic, but just happy to be out here producing content for you guys here on the podcast. You know, this is the main thing I love doing beyond everything else. So just happy to be doing that. So let's get started off with the Texans and Chiefs last night on Sunday Night Football. 20-10, kind of feels like the Texans put a dagger in the heart of the Chiefs' playoff hopes yesterday as they now fall to 6-7 on the season. And now they snapped their nine season winning streak in terms of winning their division. Chiefs literally cannot win the AFC West now, but they still have very little hopes. I think they have like a 17% chance of making the playoffs. But even if they were to win out, they'd go 10-7. And who knows if 10-7 is even going to get you in the playoffs? I mean, there's a serious log jam in terms of teams in the hunt, and hell, even the 5th, 6th, and 7th seed. If you're not leading your division, and even the teams that are leading their division, like Pittsburgh now, are still only a game up. They still have to play Baltimore again in terms of their last game of the year. So there's a serious log jam in terms of teams that are going to be able to get that 5, 6, and 7 seed and even win their divisions as well. So it's not looking good for Kansas City. A little bit of a hot take here, maybe, is that I think the Houston Texans are the scariest team in the league. I would rather play LA in terms of the Rams. I'd rather play the Rams. I'd rather play the Seahawks. I'd rather play the Broncos. I'd rather play the Patriots. I'd rather play just about any other team than play the Houston Texans right now. Every game this year, they've held opposing quarterbacks to under 225 yards. And I think at 10 games, they've held teams under 20 points. In a offensive league where the offense is booming, and every year you look scoring numbers, offensive numbers, whether it's receiving yards, passing touchdowns, whatever it is, they've gone up every single year. And to see what the Houston Texans are doing and mind you, great quarterbacks. A few weeks ago, they shut down Josh Allen and the Bills. Last night, they shut down Patrick Mahomes, which I know they haven't been the same team, but still. I mean, you're catching Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Andy Reid, in a pretty high-pressure situation where they've thrived most over the last decade or so, and you just completely shut them down last night. You hold Mahomes to the lowest passer rating, I believe, in his career last night. I think it was like 19.7, 3 picks, no touchdowns. Just shut the entirety of that offense down and really made Andy Reid didn't even know what to do. That's pretty incredible. I wouldn't want to play the Texans right now. Meanwhile, the only thing that's really in their way is their offense. If their offense, was even the 12th ranked offense in the league, I don't know where their offense is ranked, but it can't be ranked that high in terms of their offensive line play, which has gotten better throughout the last few weeks and on this winning streak. They're not up there in terms of scoring or anything like that. I mean, as I mentioned, they've held teams 10 times this year under 20 points, and they're at a lot of these games. Like, they're not blowing out teams by any stretch. Even with those teams not really being able to score, the Texans are still in those games. So their offense, I think, could be their downfall, to be honest with you. I like Stroud. He made a couple of really big-time throws last night. He made one across his body. I think it was to Nico Collins or Christian Kirk. I forget who it was. It was in the first half. It kept the drive going. I think it led them on a scoring drive. So, he made some pretty high-level throws. He looked like the C.J. Stroud we seen his rookie year. So, if he can just show flashes of that, which he definitely has. He's been hurt this year. He missed a few weeks. A few weeks ago, he missed a few weeks. And, that Texans defense, Davis Mills, got to give him a lot of credit. He stepped in. he stepped in, made a big time change for that offense, kept them consistent, winning games. So definitely have to give Davis Mills a lot of credit there as well. I know he hasn't won the last couple of weeks, but in terms of keeping them alive and having them be 8-5, that goes to show you a lot too, is that they're putting in their backup quarterback. Let's say Davis Mills is probably an average backup, maybe a little bit above an average backup in this league. And they're out there beating Buffalo with him and stuff. So that goes to show you, man, I think they're the scariest team in the NFL. I would not want to play them, especially if they do get to the playoffs. That's, to me, the scariest team in there. I think they could beat any single team that's in there. New England, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, who's leading their division for now. I think they can beat any team in there. So, a comparison I was making too, that in terms of their longevity, in terms of winning seasons, I think DeMeco Ryans kind of feels like a younger Mike Tomlin. In terms of the culture changing, I know recent history hasn't been good to Mike Tomlin, but in terms of the last 5 years or so of them going 9-8 and 10-7 or getting bounced out in the first round, they haven't won a playoff game in like 7 years or something like that. But before all of that, and even still with his winning seasons, like he was having winning seasons with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and just guys that you look now. I seen Kenny Pickett came in yesterday for the Raiders, and he just, oh my God, he just didn't look good. I'm like, how in the hell did Mike Tomlin pull off winning seasons and get to the playoffs with Kenny Pickett? I think DeMeco Ryans kind of feels like a bit of a younger version of him in terms of culture building and defense and stuff. I mean, he won a Super Bowl. I can't remember if he won 2 Super Bowls with Big Ben or not. I know he was there for the one. He's been to a couple of them. Got to a couple of AFC championships. I mean, he is a fantastic coach. And that's what it kind of feels like with DeMeco in terms of the way their defense is schemed, the culture he's built. Even, I do think they definitely have high-level players on their defense. And how Pittsburgh did for years as well. They still do. And no matter what, he could stick in an undrafted rookie and have him go in there and look like a second-round pick and just have him in there flying all over the field. That, to me, is really good coaching. If Houston can fix up their offense, I think I'd have them winning the Super Bowl, even if their offense was ranked like number 12, to be honest with you. The Chiefs, look, I just, with Pat Mahomes kind of getting older, which I don't necessarily think his age is an issue. He's only 30 years old. I think he has another 4, 5, 6 years of really good play. But in terms of the team around them, their age, I think it's definitely showing. Travis Kelce had another brutal drop that led to Pat Mahomes' 3rd interception last night. And that was really kind of the telltale sign of Kelce's entire year. I think Mahomes has had a couple of interceptions that have went off the hands of Kelce. I think it happened against Jacksonville, and Kansas City ended up losing that game. Could you imagine they ended up winning that game and last night's game because Kelce could hold on to the ball and the ball didn't get turned over? Now, I think Andy Reid's play call in terms of them going for it on 4th down when it was 10-10 on the other side of the field, to me, was not good. I was kind of like, that kind of felt like a kind of a boneheaded play by Andy Reid, or a boneheaded call. Something you don't usually say, but I felt desperate. I think he knew at this point yesterday that yesterday was all or nothing. That if they do not win that game, then they're not getting into the playoffs. And I don't think Kansas City's going to get in. I think they have to play Denver again. I think they have a couple of tough opponents coming up on their schedule. I don't know the rest of the opponents. The last, were they 6-7? So they got four games left. I don't know the rest of their 4 games. Again, as I mentioned, I think they do play Denver again. And I do think they actually play the Chargers again. So for them to even make the playoffs, I think they'd have to go 4-0. As I mentioned, I don't even know if 10-7 is going to get you in the playoffs. There's a serious log jam there in terms of the play, in terms of being in the hunt. How Miami's in there now. They're like 6-7. If you would have told me through 14 weeks the Dolphins and the Chiefs would have the same record, especially after seeing how the Dolphin season started, I would have been like, Jesus, what in the hell happened? And that's kind of where we're at right now. But I just think we look at the Chiefs, and we're kind of expecting that big turnaround. And I'm going to mention that with another team here in a sec, with this next game coming up. The Chiefs just are not that good. I think they need another offseason I think they'll be fine next season. They're going to offload Kelsey. They may end up getting rid of Chris Jones, who he had a shoestring tackle last night for a sack against Stroud, but they're going to have to offload some of these older guys. I think they do have young pieces to work around. They need to get another running back. Hunt and Pacheco, you're very limited with those two in your running back. They're bruising backs, but you're not going to get big plays. I thought they were going to go and trade for Breece Hall, but they didn't end up doing so. I think they could have really used him. Xavier Worthy is very niche. Like, he's not quite the player they thought he'd be. Every once in a while comes in and makes a big play. Rashee Rice is a big-time playmaker, but they just don't have that explosive element on offense, which is what we're used to seeing at Pat Mahomes. When you think of Mahomes, you think of big 60-yard bombs down the field, on the run, 50 touchdowns in a season, 5,000 yards. He hasn't had that in a while, and I don't know if we're ever going to see that again. Maybe we've seen Mahomes peak. It doesn't necessarily mean that Mahomes is done. It doesn't mean they're never going to make the Super Bowl again. They're not going to make the playoffs again. And he's not going to be a top 5 quarterback anymore. But I think maybe we've seen the peak of 50 touchdown Mahomes and stuff like that. I don't know if we'll see that again because, well, the team around him is getting older. He hasn't necessarily been the same player either. He's missed a lot of throws this year. Big time throws. I mean, there's been instances of guys like Tyquan Thornton. Now I can name multiple receivers that have been open down the field. I mean, wide open 40, 50 yards down the field, and he overthrows them by 7, 8 yards or something like that. And it's something you're just not used to seeing him do. And guys, when they get older, they take some hits. Sometimes you just start missing throws. And when I say older, I don't mean he's 38 years old and he's towards the end of his career. I think he still has eight or 9 years left or something like that. I think he could play another 8 years. But 30 years old, 31 years old, you're aging a little bit, especially when he's different from Brady. To me, he's kind of more like, I'm not saying him and Russell Wilson are comparable, but maybe in terms of their play style, kind of running around, known for their deep ball, and just kind of improvising, like really relying on your athleticism. Now, I do think that Mahomes has a better arm. I think Mahomes has one of the greatest arms you've ever seen in the NFL. But, the older he gets, the more that arm's only going to get weaker. So, and he's going to get inaccurate, kind of overcompensate for plays. And I think in terms of the team around him, kind of starting to fall apart. They're getting old. They're just not as talented as they used to be. It's hard for them to put him. It's hard for him to put him on their back. So, Kansas City to me is in some real trouble. 6-7, 4 games left. They have a serious hole to climb out of that. I don't know if they're going to get there. I think this team is going to finish 8-9. I think they'll go 2-2, but I just don't think Kansas City is that good. I think we've been waiting for the turnaround all year. I thought it was coming like about a month or so back when they beat Las Vegas 31-0. They were on like a 3-game win streak. They got Rice back. I was like, okay, this team's about to go on like an 8 or 9 game win streak. And next thing you know, you look up, they're 12-5, and that just hasn't happened. And I don't think it's certainly going to happen with 4 games left and them kind of at an all-time low in the Mahomes era right now. Steelers-Ravens 27-22. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, that there's one team that we're waiting for the turnaround with, and that's what we're kind of waiting for the Chiefs. We're waiting for them to turn around. Is their season going to turn around? Well, we've been saying the same with the Ravens all year, and it kind of looked like it. They were 5-1. They were kind of coasting. Now, again, they were in the weaker part of their schedule, but still, them winning games in general is still a good thing. They went 5-1. I think they're now 5-2 over the stretch still, even with the Pittsburgh loss last night or yesterday afternoon. But the Ravens just aren't that good. And when Lamar's not 100%. There's something seriously up there. And I think they're scheming. John Harbaugh, the coaching, I think, is brutal there. I think I mentioned on this podcast probably 10 times so far over this season that John Harbaugh is the most overrated coach in the NFL. Even more overrated than Mike Tomlin. At least Mike Tomlin, he's got them a bunch of winning seasons. It feels like they overachieve with Mike Tomlin. Even when they have Pickett and teams that just are not that good, people get on them because they don't ever have a losing season when their team sucks. They need to have Pittsburgh needs a losing season in order for that to have a full reset. Even coming off the win yesterday, I think fans still kind of feel like that they're going to finish 10-7 and they're probably going to get bounced out again in the first round. I think that's the last thing they want, to be honest with you. But John Harbaugh never overachieves with his teams. If anything, they're always disappointing. They get bounced out in the second round. They got bounced out in the AFC Championship a few years ago to a Chiefs team that just felt kind of inferior to them, to be honest with you. That was one of the best seasons in terms of an offense-defensive combo any team's ever had. That's what the Ravens had. They had the best offense and the best defense in the league with Mike McDonald, who's now a head coach for the Seahawks, and how they're like 10-3 or something like that with him. They were 10-7 with him last year and ended up missing the playoffs. So clearly, they had a seriously good defensive coordinator when Monken, was serviceable at the time, at least. I mean, he was a good coordinator at the time. I don't think Monken's even serviceable anymore. I just don't think he's a very good offensive coordinator. But I think we kind of look around with this team, and we're waiting for that big jump from the Ravens. But I think they have a coaching issue. I think the players don't want to play for John Harbaugh. You just see him. Like I mentioned with D'Amico Ryans earlier, those teams, and I can name multiple teams in this league that go out there, the Patriots with Mike Vrabel, the Bears with Ben Johnson. Those guys go out there and they play hard as hell for their coach. The Ravens sulk. They're pissed off, slamming their helmets on the sideline, screaming at each other. Oh, I don't know what's her name. Lisa Salter said that last night in the middle of the game at the Ravens and Pittsburgh game, that they were like, the Ravens players are very frustrated on the sidelines, slamming their helmets. Zay Flowers, there was like 4 of them all together screaming at each other on the sideline. It's a mess. Those guys don't feel like they're playing hard for Harbaugh at all. That's a team I can confidently say they're not playing hard for their coach. They're just not. If anything, they don't want to play for their coach. There's been multiple reports coming out about how Lamar's frustrated with the coaching staff. And to me, it's showing in his play. I know he's injured. He doesn't look nearly 100%. Honestly, over the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, he looks pretty terrible since he's come back from injury. Besides that Miami game, he came back in and he looked really good in that game. He's looked pretty terrible. I mean, he had a terrible interception yesterday. I forget who he was trying to throw it to, but it was just, usually he can layer it over the top and get it there. I mean, it was a good interception nonetheless. He stacked it down with one hand, but it was just a bad throw. I mean, he definitely could have got it to him, and that's the throw you're kind of used to seeing him make. Clearly, he's off. And you can even tell with Romo and those guys in the stands, Jim Nance as well, when they were announcing the games yesterday. They make it seem like a big spectacle when Lamar runs now. It's like, oh, look, Lamar's finally running in the middle of the field. It's like, when it's kind of to a point to where we're getting excited that Lamar's finally running and using his legs, and he's getting more than 5 yards on a carry, to me, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing at all. Clearly, he's injured in some sort of way, but it goes deeper than the Lamar injury. And I thought the Mark Andrews contract last week, to me, is a sign of that the Ravens are kind of heading in the wrong direction. With the Chiefs, what I mentioned with the Chiefs earlier, is that they're going to have an offseason. They're going to offload their older players. They're going to look to get younger, which is what they need to do. That's what the Ravens need to do. And that's why they should have traded Mark Andrews 2 years ago. I mean, he's past his prime now. And they extended him for like 3 years, $40 million, like 26 of it's guaranteed. And I'm just like, to me, that's just insane. You $26 million you need to use on your guard play, which stinks. The Ravens' offensive line sucks. They need to offload Marlon Humphrey. Look, I like Marlon Humphrey. He's made some plays, but he's getting older and he's injury prone. They have multiple guys everywhere. Every unit you look at, linebackers, offensive line. Ronnie Stanley's kind of having one of the worst years of his career. Rosengarten, their right tackle, or their other tackle, opposite side of Ronnie Stanley. He's having the worst year of his career so far. I think this is only his second year, but he's regressed. They have areas of need on that team. We came in, including myself, thinking, man, the Ravens have a great roster. They're getting older. They only have a couple years of this window open, but that window is clearly closed faster than any of us had thought. That's the same with the Chiefs. I didn't think the Chiefs would look this bad this quickly. They're not nearly as bad as a Cleveland or something like that, but these two teams are immensely disappointing. They're both 6-7. Their quarterbacks haven't necessarily played great. One's dealing with injury, but the team around them is just getting older. And I think the Chiefs are going to be doing the right thing and moving off. I don't trust the Ravens. I mean, I think they should let go of Harbaugh, especially the way the season's gone. And and let go of some of these older players. But when the rumor's been that you're going to get rid of Mark Andrews for the last 2 years now, and you sign him for $40 million, that shows to me that they're trying to run it back with this. And if they think that they're going to finish 8-9 this year and they run it back, I think that's just another sign for disaster. I mean, the Steelers yesterday, Aaron Rodgers played a fantastic football game. I mean, he looked like he did 5 years ago in his MVP year. And that throw he had to start off the game, the DK Metcalf, double coverage in the bucket, 50 yards down the field or something like that, was just vintage Aaron Rodgers. I immediately texted my friends in my group chat. I was like, did you guys just see that? That was vintage Aaron Rodgers right there. I mean, and I was like, that's a sign of things to come. This game, I was like, the Ravens might be screwed. Now, yesterday, speaking of getting screwed, they had the Aaron Rodgers, or the interception that he caught. He was down on a knee that they overturned and said it wasn't a pick. Look, I don't think that was an interception. I think that Rodgers' knee was down when he had control of the ball. We all agreed. Nance, Romo, whatever. I asked some of my friends. We all agreed as well. I definitely think it was not a pick. I think it was a good overturn. Though the tiebreaker always goes to the offense in that case right there. And I thought he had control. I thought his knee was down for a decent bit. And I don't think that was a pick. But the second play towards the end of the game that everyone's been talking about is the Isaiah Likely touchdown that was called back. Look, I think that the rules for a catch is kind of bullshit, to be honest with you. I think we all seen it. I think we all agree that it was a catch. Besides Steelers fans, of course, they're not going to say it was a catch. Respectfully so, I get it. But I just because his cuticle wasn't moving forward, or his finger wasn't, to me, he has two feet down, ball's in control, in the end zone, that he had the ball long enough for it to be a catch, just because he didn't tuck it in. And I think when he caught the ball, his arms were already extended, so he can't really extend the ball out forward, which is a football move, which is extending the ball, tucking the ball in. It's like, okay, his arms are extended. What do you want him to tuck out his cuticle over the ball, under the ball, for it to be a football move? That's what I don't really understand, especially going back and looking at the play. Now, in terms of the rule that it's not a catch, the ruling, I guess technically he did make a football move or whatever, but he clearly has 2 feet, has control of the ball when he has 2 feet. I think it should have just been a touchdown at that point. Supposedly he did complete the third element of the catch, which is, like I mentioned, making the football move. When you already have your arms extended, I think it's kind of hard, especially when the defender, I don't know who the defender was on that play, has his arm extended through Likely's arms and through his hands. It's like he literally can't make a football move. It's like, to me, what the hell do you want him to do? I mean, I think he's doing all he can to catch the football, which he got 2 feet, has control of it for what, 3 seconds or so. I don't really know what else he has to do for that to be a touchdown. So I do understand why Ravens fans are upset with that. But and Tomlin, the president, I mean, they asked him, he was like, no, I don't think it was a touchdown. What do you expect him to say? I'd say the same thing if I was up there. I just told you guys what I thought of it. If I was up there in the podium, back, I don't think it was a touchdown. I'd say the same thing. But Pittsburgh, I think that receiver meeting they had over the weekend clearly seemed to do some sort of justice. Aaron Rodgers, after the game, was so high on DK Metcalf. Was like, practice this week, he looked fantastic. Maybe that meant bringing in Adam Thielen. Look, a veteran presence. Thielen's an expressive person too. Like, I don't think he's not just going to come in there and just kind of be, I don't know, act like a diva or whatever it is. Like, Thielen's a pretty come-to-work guy. Watch the film, which Aaron Rodgers is fanatical about. We all know that. We've seen over the week his takes on his team, his receivers not watching film. It was his birthday, and they ended up showing to his house with a birthday cake, as his receivers did, because they had a big thing going on. Definitely seems like that had some sort of impact on the receiving crew, because the Jalen Warren touchdown down the sideline, which was just terribly blown defensive coverage. The Steelers and Ravens, the last game of the year is going to be incredibly important for these two teams. I'm still not too high on the Steelers, but I think they looked a lot better yesterday. I think their offense looked more poised. Maybe that receiver meeting, maybe that bringing in Thielen brought them a spark. And I think for Baltimore, Unfortunately, it was at the wrong time for them. If they would have played them 2 weeks ago, maybe it would have been a different story. But yeah, I think just wrong time there for the Ravens as well. But as I mentioned with the Chiefs, I just don't think Baltimore is that good. I think we're waiting for the spark with this team, them to take that next step. Well, for one, it's too late in the season to this point for them to make the playoffs, and the only way for them to make the playoffs, either two of these teams, is to win their division. So Ravens have a chance, but they have a tough schedule. Part of their schedule coming up, they have to play Green Bay. They play Cincinnati again this week, which I don't really trust them to win. We've seen Burrow and the Bengals yesterday against Buffalo. They look fantastic. I'll talk about that here in a few. But hell, they played New England, and then they played Pittsburgh again. So they could very well finish 0-4. Tough sledding here for the Ravens. Bears, Packers, 21-28. Big time divisional game there. That was one of my favorite games to watch yesterday. Hard-hitting, physical game. At one point, the Packers were up, 14-3 in the first half. And it was kind of looking like, oh, God, are the Packers going to run away with this thing? Kind of make the Bears on fraud alert. And the Bears ended up having a fantastic second half. Williams, unfortunately, ended up throwing that interception at the end of the game on the final drive. But, if he would have waited another second, he had DJ Moore wide open, which I get pressures in his face. 3 people. It's easy for me to say, having a camera that watches every the entirety of the end zone and everyone who's rushing him. And Williams sees 3 6'5" men rushing him, running 20 miles an hour. It's easier said than done. But if he would have waited another second, he had DJ Moore for a walk-in touchdown. I still even think when he threw that to Kmet, I think even if he just threw the ball up a little higher, he probably had him. That ball just floated up there too long, made the pick. It was just a good defensive play. So, but the Bears, to me, prove that they are a real team. The Packers are a real Super Bowl team to watch out for in the NFC. Bears hung around with them. This shows that this is not the Bears of the past, because the last couple times the Bears have played the Packers, they just gotten their shit kicked in. Just literally not even close, especially all those years of Aaron Rodgers going against the Bears. It just wasn't even competitive. That rivalry was so one-sided. And even though the Packers won yesterday, it definitely shows that this isn't a game the Packers could look on the schedule anymore and be like, hey, we got Chicago. There's a couple free wins there. No, this is a serious rivalry now. And the Bears, Ben Johnson clearly has his team pumped. Again, the running game, but none guy, hell, they got that guy out of nowhere. They got that guy out of nowhere in the draft. Jesus, how fantastic has he been? That running back duo between Swift and Monunga has been fantastic. And clearly, and at the beginning of the game, Williams was had 3 completed passes for 40 yards or something like that. Kind of looking like a disaster. And what I've been saying all year is they're winning games, but isn't necessarily because of Caleb. Caleb's been good on late game drives, but he's been very questionable throughout the game. And I was like, oh, if they go in here, they get blown out, and Caleb throws a couple of picks and has a sub 50% completion percentage, and it's under 100 yards passing or something like that, it's not going to look good. That can be something that seriously shifts the momentum of the Bears franchise this year. But him being able to go out there in high pressure moments, to me, is really good. Caleb Williams, I know he threw that pick at the end of the game, but when he wasn't looking good there for a while, for a majority of the game, he came out there. He ended up turning the game around and made it a close game. And I think that shows a lot of resiliency there from Caleb. Jordan Love, one thing that screams to me about the Packers is how well they're run. The Micah Parsons trade has looked fantastic. Their defense, which one of the concerns I had for the Packers at the beginning of the year was their secondary. I was like, God, them kind of getting rid of Alexander, who has been injury prone anyway, but it's still having him there, which clearly was the right move, getting rid of him and moving off. Even the Ravens too, hell, they traded him to Philadelphia and he ended up retiring. That clearly was the right move for Green Bay to move off. Their young corners like Valentine has looked fantastic. McKinney, their safeties, their pass rushers, their linebackers, every unit, they may not have guys you can name off the bat besides Micah Parsons and even McKinney, if you wanted to say. They don't have guys like Derek Stingley or something like that, or a Gonzalez or a Surtain. on defense in terms of their secondary. But they just have hard hitting guys who play well, that are fast, create turnovers. They're just good players. They may not be great. They may not be Surtain. They may not be Gonzalez, but they are great. They are really good players, and they do what it takes in order for them to win games. So that to me goes to show how well they're ran, how well their coaching is, and for them to be able to go from Favre to a guy who's better than Favre with Aaron Rodgers to now, he's probably not better than Favre or Rodgers, but it's right now fourth in terms of in terms of the favorites to win MVP. Jordan Love, they just seem to just never miss on quarterback or any of these guys. They are so well run. And I just watched them yesterday against Chicago, and it's like, same story can be said on their offense. Besides Love and even Josh Jacobs, it's like, who else do they have, really? I mean, look, they have Christian Watson, they have Dobbs, Matthew Golden, with Jayden Reed. Like, they don't necessarily have, Justin Jefferson or Chase or just a big-time receiver on offense. They just have a good group of guys that are not highly paid. Look at that. I mean, besides Love, I mean, really, who else is highly paid on that offense? The receivers, ain't. I mean, I know they spent a first-round pick on Matthew Golden, but the way their operation is ran, they're young players, they're not playing up much. The longevity of this Packers team is going to be really good. They have Parsons under contract. McKinney's going to be there for a while. And considering how fast they turned their season around from what it was a month ago to where they had no identity on offense. I mean, people were like, should Matt LaFleur be fired? Look at their offense. This is a disaster. And from what they've turned it around, or how they've turned it around in the last couple of weeks, the last month or so, has been pretty incredible. I mean, you have to give LaFleur and that staff a lot of credit because, you look at Philadelphia, and like the thing with Kevin Patullo and all, they haven't figured it out through 14 weeks. They're not going to. I mean, Kevin Patullo in that offense is just stuck. Nick Sirianni isn't going to call it. He says he is absolutely sticking by Kevin Patullo calling the offense for the rest of the year, which maybe could end up costing Sirianni his job. I don't know. They just paid him a lot of money, so probably not. But Kevin Patullo this time next year probably won't be a Philadelphia Eagle. So it just goes to show you how fast they turn that around. It's pretty incredible. They played a good game. It was a really just hard-hitting game, physical game, in a game with a lot of meaning to it yesterday. Really, really fun to watch. Colts-Jags, 1936. It really more or less just the importance of Daniel Jones being out now and the Colts season on the line. From where they were at 3 weeks ago to being in the driver's seat in their division and how even being in talks for the number one seed to now being like, is this team going to make the playoffs? Daniel Jones is out. Anthony Richardson is still dealing with that eye injury, I think. That's why he didn't come in yesterday. People were like, well, why isn't Anthony Richardson in the game? He's still dealing with that orbital fracture he had like a month or so ago in pregame warmups where Trevarius Ward got hurt too. The Colts all of a sudden now, they traded 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner and their team. Not blaming this on Sauce Gardner, but you wonder if they could take that back. Like, shit, look at our team right now. We're kind of falling apart. Now we don't have 2 first-round picks, and we're not quite as good as we thought we were. Daniel Jones is now, look at where we're at without him, and even with him. They were kind of getting stomped with him in there yesterday. Now, I know he was hurt, but are we going to have to rely on Riley Leonard? Like, what the hell are we going to do? I had to just think now the Jags, though, man, I'm going to have the Jags really high in my top 10 this week. I mean, I'm going to say that right now. It's like the Jags have how fast they've turned around now. They are really high. I think they're the most penalized team in the league. And I've noticed it when I see them play. It's like they get a lot of penalties, a lot of sloppy penalties, which I think the Jags are definitely going to make the playoffs. I think them or Houston's going to win that division, but I think either one who doesn't win that division will manage to sneak in the playoffs anyway. But I think if the Jags are to get to the playoffs, that I think their downfall is going to be their sloppy penalties. And I think that comes from a first-time head coach with Liam Cohen as well. And their team's really young, too. This team still has to build. They're about another year or two away, I think, from being real Super Bowl contenders. Trevor Lawrence's play the last couple of weeks has been better from where it was against Arizona. And now even really the rest of the season, they've been winning games. For Lawrence has thrown a lot of interceptions and has had a lot of boneheaded mistakes in those games. But That game yesterday against Indy, he looked sharp, made a lot of really good throws, and looked like the number one generational pick that he's supposed to have been the last 5 years. So if he can keep playing like that, man, this Jags team next year, we could be talking about them in Super Bowl category. So, I mean, it was a big-time win for them yesterday, but the Colts now falling apart, falling behind. Is this team even going to make the playoffs? I mean, Jonathan Taylor's went kind of silent now the last few weeks. Teams are holding it on him like no tomorrow. They're like, let Riley Leonard or let Daniel Jones with a fractured fibula, make him beat us. I thought it showed a lot of toughness, though, that Daniel Jones, even though it's an Achilles injury, and on top of the fibula, he was out there on the sideline walking around yesterday after that. That shows a lot of mental toughness, and I got a lot of respect for Daniel Jones after that. I had a lot of respect for him coming out anyway and playing on that fractured fibula and knowing the risks of going out there, potentially making it even worse. And now he's an Achilles injury on top of that. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for him going out there and doing that. And then coming back out on top of that and go with his team on the sidelines, clearly in severe pain in a walking boot. So definitely got a lot of respect for Daniel Jones there. But the Jags love their play. I mean, their defense, Brian Thomas Jr., they really need him to step up. He had one of his better games of the season yesterday. Kind of sucks for them. Travis Hunter's out, but they'll get him back eventually. I think next season, I'm pretty sure he's out the rest of the year this year, but next season, imagine they'll have him back in his sophomore year. He only adds any sort of positive to that team in terms of whether he plays receiver or corner. He's just a positive no matter what side of the ball he's playing. So then they're going to have a first-round pick and another draft. Maybe some of the other additions in the offseason. So the Jags are in good shape, man. But yeah, the Colts falling off. I think we bought into them a little bit too soon. Well, actually, not really. They were 8-2. But I didn't expect them to fall apart quite this fast. And from what I was saying with the Colts earlier this year and why I was so hesitant to buy into Indy is like, where the New Orleans Saints were last year, they looked fantastic the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then they fell off a cliff. That's what I thought Indy was going to do. I thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Now they're falling apart. They're only 8-5, but they have a tough stretch coming up on their schedule. They have an opportunity to maybe win one more game. I mean, especially if with Daniel Jones out, depending on how Riley Leonard plays, if they end up bringing back Anthony Richardson, how good is he going to be? Is he going to take a step up, or is he just going to continue to be a bust? I don't know. So interesting there with Indy and Jacksonville. That whole AFC South, man, is ultra competitive right now between Houston and Indy and Jacksonville. It's just pretty crazy how good that division's been this year. From what has been regarded as probably one of, if not the worst division in football for a while, they're ultra competitive this year. So that's pretty cool to see. Bengals-Bills, what is it? 34-39. I don't know. It looked like I wrote 39-39 for a second. I apologize. 34-39. Bengals-Bills. I thought the Bengals were going to win that game. Snow game kind of reminded me of that playoff game they had a few years back. The Cincinnati ended up winning that one. Again, I think they were in Buffalo. Heavy snow. Just looked like the game yesterday. It literally looked exactly like it. That's why I thought Cincinnati was going to win that game. Even though Josh Allen's called the winter soldier, they kind of came out, slow start. Allen's been kind of up and down a lot this year. Cincinnati was definitely on the uptrend. Their momentum has been only trending upwards. Their defense has gotten better every week from what's been the worst defense in football for the last 2 or 3 years. They've actually looked good over the last 3 weeks or so. So I was like, hell. And they didn't look bad. They didn't look bad yesterday either. But Joe Burrow had this couple of interceptions at the end of the game when they were up 10 or 11 points with 7 minutes left. I was like, shit, man, Cincinnati's going to pull off this win. And as a Patriots fan, look, I'm not biased when I come on here and talk football. When I come here on this podcast, I talk football. I'm not biased, but I was hoping the Bills were going to lose that game yesterday. In terms of the AFC East standings, but a couple of really good defensive plays there, and Joe Burrow had a couple of bad picks, including the pick six. I think the pick six was just more of a really good defensive play than Joe Burrow making a bad throw. He had a couple of balls get batted down. He had 2 in that sequence that got batted for a pick, which I thought was pretty strange. But T. Higgins, I guess he had a touchdown he had in the end zone. I mean, geez, that's a high-level play right there. goes to show you, they paid him a lot of money for a reason, but still, I still would say that they could have used that more on defense. They could have used that on an offensive lineman. Like, look at how many holes their defense still has. Even though they've been getting better over the last few weeks, they're wasting one of the greatest offensive runs. I mean, this team has a pretty generational offense between Higgins and Burrow and Chase. I mean, they have a seriously good group of guys. And I give Zach Taylor one thing, is that he's an offensive coach, and he may end up getting fired after this season, but he does call a really good offense. He does. You have to give him a lot of credit there. I mean, their offense hasn't been the issue. And to where I give Zach Taylor some sort of praise is like, dude, the Bengals have always been known for being cheap. When Joe Burrow got injured earlier this year, they didn't even have a cart for him when he had to shit with his toe. They didn't even have a cart for him. They carted off the field. They had to walk him off the field because the organization didn't have a cart. That's how cheap the Cincinnati Bengals are. They've always been known as being cheap. How these were sharing, I think they were sharing, was it before Marvin Lewis got there? They were sharing the organization. They were practicing on like a high school facility. I mean, it was just because they didn't want to build one. Marvin Lewis came and I was like, screw this. We're coming in. We're building a facility. We're turning into a real NFL franchise. And that's where, they got really expensive on a couple of their really flashy players on offense, but they're cheap on defense. They are. I know they spent a first-round pick on Shamar Stewart, which definitely hasn't worked out to this point. They still have issues on defense. I mean, I know their defense didn't play bad yesterday, but this offseason, they really have to work on their defense. And I thought one kind of interesting thing to me with Cincinnati is like, people were talking about, well, Cincinnati ends up winning this game. Are they going to be sneaking in the playoffs? I was like, okay, if Kansas City is out of the race, people were saying, oh, this team's done at 6-7, and the Bengals yesterday would have been like 5-8 if they would have won. I'm like, there's no chance Cincinnati's going to the playoffs anyway. I think at this point, they're just playing for pride and momentum. I think they know they're not going to make the playoffs. So, they should have won that game yesterday. They should have. Burrow had a couple of those interceptions, and Josh Allen, ended up coming through. He's the best quarterback in the league right now. I love Drake May, especially as a Patriots fan, but Allen, in terms of him being in his prime, being healthy, I know he's had some ups and downs this year, but there isn't a guy I'd rather have in this league. Dry air, man. Where I'm living at, it's just like 30 degrees, windy as hell, dry air. I gotta take a drink like every 5 minutes. But in terms of, I wouldn't rather have a guy in this league in a snowy-ass game like that, in just big-time moments like that than Josh Allen. He ran off that big 30, 40-yard touchdown in the snow yesterday. Couple of just, all-time caliber throws yesterday that very few people in this league, not only now, but really in league history, could make the throws he made yesterday. He just is an incredible talent. Now, I thought it would have been pretty interesting that if Sean McDermott and the Bills would have lost that game yesterday, that where would Sean McDermott's job security be sitting at? I mean, I think there'd be some real concerns there with like, what the hell do we do with this guy? I mean, we are now out of the running for the AFC East, which if the Patriots win on Sunday, they play the Bills, then they have the AFC East locked up. They will clinch their division. Which, as long as the Bills can make the playoffs, but if they end up losing their division, which they probably would have ended up doing so yesterday, I think it would have made them too far back, and they would have ended up losing to Cincinnati at home. A team that, to me, isn't fair. The way that Bills' defense has been played has been pretty atrocious, too. McDermott's a defensive coach. And there would have been some question marks there. Even if the Bills, if they don't win their division this year, and they get bounced in, like, the first round, I'd be very concerned with Sean McDermott's job security. That's all I gotta say. Kind of feels like maybe a bit of a John Harbaugh situation there. To like, are we gonna keep sticking with this guy? Been the same result year in and year out. Josh Allen only gets older every year, and it only takes one injury to kind of be like, oh shit. Like, look at Lamar Jackson. He's not even anywhere near the same player this injury he has. I mean, imagine Josh Allen he runs a lot. He takes a lot of hard hits. And he's a big time player. He's a bigger guy than Lamar Jackson is, but still. And Lamar isn't a pipsqueak out there either. I just, one kind of little hamstring, a little tweak to Josh Allen's ankle, and it could hinder his play. And this team relies a lot on Josh Allen. It's very reminiscent of every other year the Bills have had so far. So, but they ended up pulling off a big win yesterday. I think that could have potentially ended up saving Sean McDermott's job right now. And they would have fired him, obviously, this late in the season. But in terms of those talks heating up, if they would have lost, that could have potentially been a serious issue for the Bills there. Titans-Browns, we're going to go over this game really briefly here, 31-29. I just kind of want to talk about the Shedeur Sanders and the 2-point conversion. Also give the Titans some flowers as well. For the first time this year, it really looked like the Titans actually played a good football game. I know they had that win earlier in the year against Arizona, but that was a really kind of miraculous win, to be honest with you. They didn't really play good in that game at all, but this felt like the first time all year the Titans played a good, full 60-minute football game to where they looked like a real NFL team. Like, hey, we can win some games. We actually looked good yesterday. Got to give them their flowers there. Cam Ward played pretty well. He had an interception. The Browns defense at home has been historically good. They didn't look very good yesterday, but yeah, Cam Ward, got to give him some credit there. Who was it? I think it was Delpit tackling. I mean, like shoved him down to the ground. I don't know if you guys seen that play, but that was a pretty cool moment there for Cam Ward. I was like, damn, man. Hell of a play right there by him. I know he didn't end up completing the pass, but he just shoved him. I mean, a cornerback into him full speed. He shoves him down to the ground and ends up getting a throw off, avoiding like a 10-yard sack or something like that. So, pretty good play there from him. But the Browns, I have tried to kind of stick by Stefanski a little bit the last few years, but he's a joke. I mean, he is. And look, I don't care about the Shedeur Sanders and the Dillon Gabriel thing. I really don't, to be honest with you. Football is football. And I didn't care when I was like, I thought it was ridiculous the Browns still spent a third-round pick on Dillon Gabriel. Like, I don't care if they drafted Shedeur Sanders second overall or third overall and still drafted Dillon Gabriel in the third round. I think drafting Gabriel in the third round anyway is just a mistake. I mean, hell, they could have used that on an offensive lineman, which they desperately need. Look at their line. I mean, Jesus, it sucks. I mean, they could have used that just about anywhere else. I think Dillon Gabriel was projected to be like a 6th-round pick, more or less a 3rd-round pick. I mean, it clearly shows us like a couple of those throws Sanders made yesterday. Like, I don't think Dillon Gabriel could have made those throws. I think Sanders is the more talented QB than him. I mean, he had over 400 yards passing, or I think it was like, what, did he have 400 yards? I know he had 4 touchdowns. I know he had over 300 yards passing, but he had a good bit of yards yesterday. He looked pretty good. He had that interception, which, look, rookie mistake. I give the same thing to Gabriel. Gabriel makes a bad pass, look, rookie mistake. But Gabriel just didn't bring any explosiveness, and fans were getting tired of it. If there's a definition of a check down, Charlie, it was Dillon Gabriel. And I'm not saying a player can't ever throw checkdowns. Hill Sanders throws a lot of checkdowns too. But at the same time, he makes a lot of big-time throws to Judy. He had one a few weeks ago against the Raiders. It was a fantastic throw, like 50 yards down the field, almost a touchdown on the run. Plays that Dillon Gabriel just cannot make. He can't. And with the 2-point conversion yesterday, well, first off, they shouldn't have been in that situation. Stefanski should have just kicked the extra point in the first place. It would have made it 31-24, was just the first time he went for a 2-point conversion when they didn't need to do so. They had 5 minutes left, and they were down. Like, I don't know why he did that. To me, that was just really stupid. Then they get another touchdown, which I don't think he was counting on. And then they go for the 2-point conversion and don't even put Sanders on the field. Look, I don't care if it was Sanders. I don't care if it was Gabriel. I don't care if it was Deshaun Watson, Flacco, Jake Browning, Burrow. You not having your quarterback on the field at all with like no time left on the clock to tie the game, then go into overtime is the most ridiculous shit I've ever seen. I know they didn't get the 2-point conversion the first time, which they didn't even have to go for. I don't know why they did it. I still don't understand why coaches ever go for 2-point conversions when they don't need to do so yet. Like, for me, I'm saving the 2-point conversion when I need it. If we are down, let's put it in the situation of being down 31-23. And I could go for the 2-point conversion to make it 31-24 at first, which they didn't need to do. They could have kicked the extra point, just made it 31-24. But if I was down enough to where I would only get, let's just say I could just kick the extra point and make it 31-23. I would just do that and then save a touchdown at the end to then tie, because I feel like you lose all momentum when you go for the 2-point conversion before you actually get to the point to where you can tie the game. I don't know. To me, I think it was just really dumb, because in the end, it had to end up getting a 2 to tie it anyway, but he could have just kicked the extra point in the first place. And to me, that was just really stupid by Stefanski. I've questioned it. Again, you run a wildcat play that for some reason, Sanders, I don't know how many snaps he's had in the red zone. He hasn't had much because every single time he gets in the red zone, he runs a wildcat play. Every time it's like, you do it to tie the game and teams know what you're doing. And the worst part is you don't even execute it 100%. I mean, clearly it was supposed to toss it back. It didn't happen. The play got blown up. Like, you've ran the wildcat play probably 10 times in the last 2 or 3 weeks in the red zone. I don't get why you do it again to tie the game. Your quarterback is 4 touchdowns. He's having a hell of a game, and you take him out. I can't stand by that. Again, I don't care if it's Sanders. I don't care if it was Jake Browning, Mike White. I don't give a shit who it was back there. I'm not being biased towards Sanders. It's just stupid. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. That's why, to me, the Browns are the Browns. I've heard so much over the last few years, the Browns got some really good players, man. The Browns I've never heard a team that sucks so much, get so much press in the media, get kind of praise, to be honest with you. People praise the Browns for having good players, but it's okay, if you have a player with 20 sacks and a player just threw 4 touchdowns yesterday and you lost to the Titans, it's at what point do we get to where, okay, what is wrong? I think Stefanski's just an issue. I do. I don't know. I don't think he's a good coach. And I don't know what the hell they're doing there. Myles Garrett, my brother, I try to feel for you, but at the end of the day, at the same time, I know you're just shy of the sack record. You could have gotten traded and gotten paid to play for Kansas City or play for a winning organization, and you decided to stay with Cleveland. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not trying to bash them, but damn. I don't know what you're doing, my friend. Last thing I want to talk about here today is Notre Dame. I don't talk about much college football on here. Now, I do watch college football. I keep up with it, but I'm definitely more of an NFL guy, more of an NBA guy. I just like it more. I feel like I could sit down and watch more NFL, just my preference, than college football. But I keep up with it, of course. And the whole Notre Dame thing, to me, just kind of pisses me off. And I'm glad it's not just me. I've been going around, looking around the media, hearing some people's takes. And I'm glad that I'm not alone on this, where I'm like, why the hell wouldn't you play in the bowl game? Look, I get they're frustrated. And to the point of those shitty teams, James Madison isn't necessarily a bad team. I mean, in terms of the record, they've been good, but hell, I mean, I think they got curb stomped by Ole Miss earlier, so it's 45-10 or something like that. These teams that, unfortunately, they just don't stand a chance against. And I know people try talking about, Alabama shouldn't be in there. At some point, it just comes to talent. Alabama's a lot more talented than JMU is. They just are. JMU goes against Oregon. They're 21.5-point underdogs. They're going to get curb stomped against Oregon this weekend. They just are. They're going to get curb stomped. I mean, hell, I think we could look at halftime. I think it would be an accomplishment for JMU to be able to lose the game by 20 points, at least. And I'm not trying to make it sound like there's no chance JMU. Okay, look, I'd love to hear an upset story just as much as the next guy. But I just don't think it's going to happen. And I think with the college football bracket, I think them putting these teams in there that really, honestly, I hate to say, just have no business being in there. Look at bigger businesses like Costco and Walmart, right? Compared to the little mom and pop grocery store up the street. Yeah, they sell the same products. I can go get a hot dog and a beer up at Costco and the little mom and pop shop grocery store up the street. For me, it's Grossbeck's. I have a Grossbeck's grocery store up the street. I go to beer and a hot dog at either one. But it's financially, they're not even in the same realm as each other. That's the same with college football. These teams they're just not, in terms of their talent, Alabama and, in Notre Dame's credit, JMU, Notre Dame would have a lot better of a chance against Oregon than JMU would. James Madison. I'm not too big of a fan of these smaller schools. I love the upset stories, but it's most likely in positions like this that are positions to where these teams are in big moments here in the college football playoffs. Oregon's never going to lose to James Madison, ever. Maybe in some random week in September, maybe there's a chance. But when you have a team figured out, you've seen them play all season, you're trying to get to a national championship, Oregon's never going to lose that game. Or any big-time school. You can flip it with Alabama. They're never going to lose to that team. It just comes down to talent at some point. And, I get on Notre Dame's maybe understanding there. But at the same time, in terms of the bowl game, I get maybe you're pissed about not getting in the playoffs. But to me, I think it's just very cowardly to not play in a bowl game. And I can't find an excuse for this team. To me, there is none. Because a few years ago with Florida State, they were 13-0 and did not even get in the college football playoffs. Now, I get Jordan Travis was hurt. They didn't have a quarterback. But to me, I think Florida State should have still made it because just besides Jordan Travis, the receivers, the defensive linemen, the offensive linemen, the corners, whatever, every position and every player who played on that football field, the head coach, position coaches, whatever, they were all there to be a part of them being 13-0. They all worked just as hard as Jordan Travis did to be 13-0. To me, that's where I feel like that team should have been in the playoffs, regardless whether or not he was in there. The entirety of the team was worthy enough to be 13-0. You got to put him in there. To me, there's no excuse. Now, with Notre Dame, first off, they lost too many. I mean, while I think maybe they should be in there over James Madison, they still lost a ton of games anyway. And for them to not play a bowl game when you can go in there, and to me, it's ridiculous when you can get some experience for your guys like your redshirt freshmen, some of your sophomores, guys that haven't played. You get the opportunity to put them in games in big pressure positions and have these guys really get some sort of experience for next year. It's just absolutely stupid. I just do not see why they would do that at all. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. To me, there's no excuse to why they're not playing in that bowl game. There just isn't. And like Florida State, like I mentioned with them, they played in the bowl game that year. They still went 13-0. They didn't make the playoffs and still played in the bowl game against Georgia. Now, meanwhile, they ended up getting their ass kicked against Georgia. But regardless, they still played. They still did it. That's where I can't find an excuse for this Notre Dame team. It just doesn't make sense. And I'm glad we're all kind of on the same page. I know some people aren't. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions, of course. But I don't get it. To me, it's just incredibly. I don't know. It's just cowardly to me. I don't get it. But that's it for me today, y'all. Long video, hour long. I appreciate y'all sticking by watching again. Any amount of support is just